The Strategic Operations Center of the Valerian 7th Battalion smelled like burnt circuits and the collective anxiety of 17 different species trying not to panic. General Croft 9 stood at the command podium, his three primary eyes fixed on the holographic battle display, while his secondary eyes monitored his increasingly nervous staff. His chitinous plates clicked together in a rhythm that everyone in the room recognized as extreme irritation. "Explain to me again," he said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into galactic standard, "why the human military liaison is not here." Lieutenant Senna, a Vixarian with purple fur and too many tails, shuffled her data pad nervously. "Sir, the transport arrived 42 minutes ago. According to station logs, she cleared customs and then, well, she went shopping." "Shopping?" "Yes, sir. We are 18 hours from the largest combined fleet engagement in this sector's history. The Ravager Collective has mobilized 300 warships. We have been specifically assigned a human tactical consultant because High Command believes, and I am quoting directly here, that humans possess an alarming talent for unconventional problem solving." He paused, letting his mandibles click ominously. "And our human is shopping. She bought a hat, sir." Croft 9's eye stalks swiveled to focus entirely on Senna. "A hat? A very large hat, with flowers on it." The station merchant was very confused about the purchase. Before the general could formulate a response that would adequately express his feelings without violating military conduct regulations, the operations center doors opened. Captain Jade Russo walked in wearing shorts that showed entirely too much leg for a military briefing, a bright yellow shirt that said "Beach Vibes Only" in 3 languages, sandals that made soft slapping sounds against the deck plates, and yes, an absolutely massive sun hat with fake flowers around the brim. She was also eating something that looked like it had been deep-fried at least twice. The entire command staff stared. "Hey everyone," Jade said cheerfully, waving her free hand. "Sorry I'm late. Your station food court is absolutely wild. Did you know the Krellians make these things called flavor bombs? They're like if Spicy had a baby with Delicious and then that baby got struck by lightning. Highly recommend." General Croft 9's plates stopped clicking, not because he had calmed down, but because he had achieved a state of disbelief so complete that his body forgot how to express emotion. "Captain Russo, we sent you detailed mission briefings, equipment specifications, dress code protocols. We are preparing for a major military engagement against the Ravager Collective." "Right, yeah, I got all that." Jade pulled out a tablet from somewhere, tapped it a few times, then set it on the nearest console. "Read everything on the shuttle. 300 Ravager ships versus our 85. You're fortified around the Nexus station here, but they've got superior numbers and equivalent technology. Basic math says you lose." The room erupted into protests from at least 9 different officers speaking 7 different languages simultaneously. Croft 9 slammed 2 of his 6 arms on the podium. "Then why are you here, human? To witness our defeat while dressed for a vacation?" Jade grinned. It was not a reassuring grin. It was the kind of grin that made small prey animals reconsider their life choices and large predators wonder if maybe they should find easier targets. "I'm here because you asked for a human tactical consultant, General. And humans are really good at exactly one thing when it comes to warfare." "What thing?" Senna asked nervously, her tails twitching. "Cheating." Jade walked to the central holographic display, her sandals making ridiculous sounds that echoed in the suddenly silent room. "See, you're all thinking about this wrong. You're trying to figure out how to win a fair fight against superior numbers. That is literally the entire point of military strategy," Croft 9 said coldly. "Sure, if you want to do it the boring way." She manipulated the hologram, pulling up the enemy fleet formation. "But here's the thing about the Ravager Collective. They're predictable. They always use the same attack pattern because it worked really well against the Tholian Empire 70 years ago. That pattern is mathematically optimal for overwhelming fortified positions," Lieutenant Senna protested. "Against opponents who play by the rules, absolutely." Jade zoomed in on 3 specific ships in the rear of the Ravager formation. "But nobody said we had to play by the rules. See those command carriers in the back? The Ravager flagship and its 2 escorts," Croft 9 confirmed. "They coordinate the entire fleet from there." "Right. And they're using quantum entanglement communicators for instantaneous fleet coordination, which is super advanced and totally impossible to jam. Correct. Which is why we cannot disrupt their command structure. Can't jam them. Jade agreed, her smile getting wider. But you absolutely can spoof them. The general's eye stalks froze. That is impossible. Quantum entanglement communication cannot be intercepted or falsified. The encryption protocols alone are really good, yeah? For military transmissions. Jade pulled up another screen showing what looked like commercial shipping data. But here's a fun fact. The Ravager Collective uses the same basic quantum comm hardware as everyone else in this sector. They buy it from the Nexarian Commercial Consortium. And the Nexarians, being good capitalists, include a maintenance backdoor in all their hardware for technical support purposes. The room went very, very quiet, but Senna's voice came out as a squeak. You want to hack their fleet coordination using a commercial maintenance backdoor? Not me personally. I'm terrible at coding. But I brought a friend. Jade pulled out a small data core. This is Fred. Friendly remote electronic disruptor. He's an AI specialist that Earth Intelligence developed specifically for dealing with commercial quantum comm systems. You brought an AI to hack the enemy fleet, Croth9 said slowly. Technically, Fred isn't an AI. He's a very sophisticated expert system. Totally legal under galactic law. Also, he really likes jazz music for some reason, so we'll need to play some in the background while he works. Keeps him motivated. General Croth9's chitinous plates began clicking again, but this time in a pattern that roughly translated to, I am having an existential crisis about military protocol and my career choices. Captain Russo, you are suggesting we use a commercial maintenance exploit to compromise the Ravager Collective's fleet coordination system. Yep, that is the most unethical, underhanded, technically legal loophole abuse I have encountered in my 32 years of military service. Thanks, Jade said, taking another bite of her fried food. But that's just phase 1. The real fun starts after we get into their system. Lieutenant Senna's tails had stopped twitching and gone completely rigid. There is more. Always. Jade pulled up a tactical overlay showing the Ravager fleet supply chain. So while Fred is doing his thing with their comms, we need to talk about their fuel situation. The Ravagers run on processed antimatter, which is expensive and requires constant resupply. Those 300 ships? They've got maybe 48 hours of combat operations before they need to refuel. We know this, Croth9 said. Our strategy assumes they will attack within the next 18 hours to maintain fuel efficiency. Right, but here's what you don't know. Jade zoomed in on a seemingly empty section of space. There's a Ravager fuel depot here, 11 light hours away. Totally automated. No military protection because who would attack a civilian fuel station, right? The general's eye stalks swiveled in different directions, a sign of deep suspicion. You cannot possibly be suggesting we attack a civilian target. I'm not suggesting we attack anything. I'm suggesting we buy it. Every single officer in the room stared at her. The fuel depot is owned by a private Ravager corporation, Jade explained patiently. And galactic commerce law is very clear. If someone makes a legitimate offer for a commercial asset during peacetime, the sale must be processed according to standard protocols. There's no military exemption. But we are not at peace, Senna protested. Hostilities begin in 18 hours. Hostilities begin when someone fires the first shot. Right now, technically, we're in a state of aggressive negotiation. So if we, say, used a shell company to purchase that fuel depot in the next 6 hours, transferred ownership, and then immediately shut it down for environmental safety inspections, well, that would be completely legal. Croth9 sat down. Actually sat. His species did not normally sit during tactical briefings, but he made an exception for circumstances that broke his understanding of military operations. You want to buy their fuel supply out from under them. It's cheaper than fighting them. Way fewer casualties, too. Jade pulled up a financial display. I did the math. We can purchase that depot for about 8 million credits. Your fleet maintenance budget for this operation is 60 million. We'd save money. This is insane. This is efficient. She shrugged. Look, you asked for human tactical thinking. This is what we do. We spent thousands of years fighting each other with every dirty trick imaginable. Buying enemy resources, economic warfare, legal loopholes, psychological operations. Why lose good soldiers when you can win with a good accountant and a sense of humor? A new voice spoke up from the back of the command center. Commander Pix, a massive armored Taurian with horns that could gore a battle tank, stepped forward. And if the Ravagers simply ignore the sail and attack anyway, then we move to Phase 3, which is where things get really interesting. Jade's grin returned, somehow even more unsettling than before. See, while Fred is in their quantum comm system, he's not just going to monitor their communications. He's going to make some creative adjustments. What kind of adjustments? Croth 9 asked weakly. Well, the Ravager Collective is really into hierarchy and chain of command, right? Everything flows from their flagship. So what if their flagship suddenly started giving really weird orders? Senna's first stood on end. You are going to issue false commands? Not false, just creative. For example, what if the flagship suddenly ordered all vessels to perform a full diagnostic check on their navigation systems? Takes about 20 minutes per ship. They'd have to comply because the order came from legitimate command channels. They would realize something was wrong. Commander Pix rumbled. Sure, eventually. But by then we'd have already sent the next order. Maybe something about a suspected saboteur in the fleet, requiring all ships to verify their crew manifests. That's another 30 minutes. Then maybe a weapons safety inspection because someone reported a malfunction. Then a drill to test response times. By the time they figure out their comm system is compromised, we've wasted hours of their time and sown complete confusion in their ranks. Croth 9's mandibles hung open. You are going to annoy them to death. I prefer to think of it as aggressive time management enforcement. Jade finished her food and tossed the wrapper into a nearby disposal unit. But the best part? The absolute best part is Phase 4. I am afraid to ask, the general said. So, the Ravager Collective has a really strict code of honor, right? Very traditional. Very serious about military dignity and proper conduct. Yes, this is well documented. Great. So while their fleet is dealing with confusing orders and fuel shortages and mysterious delays, we're going to challenge their commander to single combat. The room exploded into chaos. Officers shouted. Senna's tails went completely vertical. Commander Pix snorted so hard his breath fogged up his own visor. Croth 9's clicking reached a frequency that humans probably could not even hear. You want to challenge War Empress Valna to personal combat? She is 8 feet tall, weighs 400 pounds, has been genetically enhanced for combat, and has personally killed 17 challengers in sanctioned duels. Yep, you are, respectfully, approximately 5'6" and appear to be built primarily for beach activities. Also true, you would die in approximately 4 seconds. Jade's smile became absolutely radiant. That's what everyone thinks. But here's the thing about Ravager Honor Combat. The challenge party gets to set the terms of engagement. Weapons, location, rules, all of it. So I'm not challenging her to a fist fight, General. I'm challenging her to a cooking competition. The silence in the operations center was so complete that you could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space outside. Lieutenant Senna broke first. A cooking competition. Yep. You want to challenge the War Empress of the Ravager Collective, a woman who has conquered 14 star systems and personally executed dozens of warriors in ritual combat, to a cooking competition. That's the plan. General Croft 9 made a sound that his translator couldn't process. It came out as static mixed with what might have been hysterical laughter or a complete mental breakdown. Possibly both. Captain Russo, he finally managed. Even if, and I cannot believe I am saying this, even if the War Empress accepts such a ridiculous challenge, how does this help us win the battle? Jade pulled up a new display showing galactic honor codes and combat traditions. Okay, so here's the beautiful part. According to Ravager tradition, when a formal challenge is issued during a military standoff, all hostilities must pause until the challenge is resolved. It's a sacred rule. Been in place for like 3,000 years. That is correct. Commander Pix confirmed reluctantly. Ravager honor law is absolute. They would have to accept a pause in operations. Right. So we issue the challenge like 6 hours before they plan to attack. They have to pause. Then we set the competition date for 72 hours later, because obviously we need time to prepare a proper venue and gather ingredients. That's tradition too. Croth 9's eye stalks were doing movements that probably violated several laws of biology. So you stall them for 3 days with a cooking competition, while their fuel runs low because we bought their depot, and while Fred continues to mess with their communications, and while our reinforcements, which are currently 48 hours away, arrive to even the odds. Jade pulled up a timeline showing how everything's synchronized. By the time the competition happens, they'll be low on fuel, confused, demoralized, and facing equal numbers. At which point they'll probably just negotiate a withdrawal. And if they do not withdraw, then I make them the best pasta carbonara they've ever had. Win the competition on a technicality because Ravager cuisine traditionally has no egg-based dishes, so they won't know how to judge it properly, claim victory, and according to their honor code, the War Empress has to forfeit one item of significant military value to the winner. You want her command badge, Senna whispered in horror. I want her command badge. It'll look great next to my collection. Jade pulled out her data pad and showed them a photo of a wall with various alien military decorations. See? I've got a Thesian combat ribbon, a Morellian honor spike, and a Quellan distinguished service medal. The Ravager badge would really tie the room together. Commander Pix leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the display. You have done this before. Multiple times. For times, technically. Turns out a lot of alien military cultures have weird honor code loopholes that humans can exploit. We're really good at finding the fine print. Croth 9 stood up slowly, all 6 of his arms moving in a gesture that conveyed resignation, respect, and the deep weariness of someone who had just realized the universe made no sense. Captain Russo, your plan is to hack their communications using a maintenance backdoor, buy their fuel depot through a shell corporation, annoy them with false orders, challenge their commander to a cooking competition, stall for reinforcements, and then win a badge through the power of Italian cuisine. You forgot the part where Fred needs jazz music. But otherwise, yes, that's the plan. This is the most ridiculous, convoluted, legally questionable, and yet somehow entirely legitimate strategy one have ever heard. Is that a yes? The general looked at his staff. His staff looked back. A complex series of gestures, clicks, whistles, and tail movements passed between them in the kind of silent communication that happens when military professionals realize they are completely out of their depth, but also kind of excited to see what happens next. It is a yes, Croth 9 said finally. But I have conditions. Shoot. First, you will provide me with written documentation that this entire plan was your idea and that I objected strenuously before approving it under direct orders from High Command. Done. Second, you will actually win this cooking competition. I will not have my career end because a human lost a culinary battle to a genocidal war empress. I'm actually a pretty good cook. Took classes and everything. Third, when this is over, you will explain to me how humans became so, and I am searching for the right word here, so aggressively unconventional. Jade laughed. That's easy, General. We spent most of our history being the underdogs. Small, weak, no natural weapons, no armor, mediocre senses. We survived by being smart, sneaky, and willing to try absolutely anything. Also, we invented lawyers really early in our development, and lawyers are basically professional loophole finders. Your species weaponized legal expertise. Among other things, we also weaponized spite, stubbornness, and the ability to digest almost anything organic. The carbonara is going to blow their minds. Senna raised a tentative hand. Captain, I have a question. Go for it. What if something goes wrong? What if they detect Fred, or the fuel depot sale falls through? Or the War Empress refuses the challenge? Jade's expression became serious for the first time since entering the room. Then we fight. Conventionally. With everything we've got. But here's the thing, Lieutenant. War is terrible. People die. Ships get destroyed. Families lose loved ones. So if I can win this battle with money, hacking, annoying emails, and a really good pasta dish, I'm going to do that. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to prove we're tough. The goal is to go home safe. The operations center was quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of quiet. Respectful. Thoughtful. Commander Pix spoke softly. You are not what I expected from a human warrior. That's because I'm not really a warrior. I'm a problem solver who happens to work for the military. Big difference. She picked up her ridiculous flowered hat and placed it back on her head. Now, who wants to help me set up Fred? He's very particular about his jazz selection. 71 hours later, General Croth 9 stood in what had been hastily converted from a cargo bay into something resembling a culinary arena. His eye stalks tracked the organized chaos around him with a mixture of awe and existential dread. Report, he said to Lieutenant Senna, who was managing a data pad that seemed to be smoking slightly. Fred successfully infiltrated the Ravager comm system, sir. They've spent the last 3 days responding to false maintenance alerts, diagnostic requirements, and what Captain Russo called the email chain from hell. Senna's tails twitched with suppressed amusement. Their fleet coordination is approximately 60% less efficient than normal. And the fuel depot? Purchased, transferred, and shut down for environmental compliance inspections. The Ravager fleet is down to 18 hours of combat capability. They've requested emergency refueling from 3 different suppliers, all of whom are experiencing mysterious delays in processing their orders. Also Captain Russo's doing. She has a lot of friends in commercial shipping, apparently. Croth-9's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. And our reinforcements arrived 4 hours ago. We now have equal fleet strength. Admiral Torvin sends her compliments and says, and I quote, "I cannot believe this insane plan is actually working." Neither can I, Lieutenant. Neither can I. The makeshift arena had been set up with 2 cooking stations, a judging table staffed by neutral parties from 3 different species, and an audience section that was currently filled with military personnel from both sides. The Ravager delegation sat on one side, their postures radiating barely contained fury and confusion. The Valerian forces sat on the other, trying very hard not to look smug. Captain Jade Russo stood at her cooking station, wearing an apron over her beach shirt and shorts. She had, mercifully, replaced her sandals with actual shoes, though they were bright pink and had cartoon characters on them. The flowered hat remained. War Empress Valna stood at the opposing station. She was exactly as intimidating as advertised. 8 feet of genetically enhanced muscle, covered in ceremonial armor that had been earned through countless battles, her face marked with ritual scars that told stories of victories in single combat. She looked at Jade the way a tiger might look at a particularly confusing mouse. "This is absurd," Valna growled, her voice like grinding stone. "You dare mock the traditions of combat with this cooking performance." "Not mocking," Jade said cheerfully, organizing her ingredients. "Respecting. Your honor code is actually really beautiful. The whole concept of resolving conflicts through skilled demonstration rather than just violence? That's evolved thinking. I'm just taking it seriously. You are taking nothing seriously. You wear that ridiculous hat and those foolish clothes, and you smile like this is a game. It's not a game. It's just not a tragedy either." Jade pulled out a container of eggs. "Look, Empress, I get it. You've built your entire reputation on being terrifying and unbeatable. But here's the thing. Being strong isn't the same as being smart. And being smart means finding solutions that don't involve people dying." Valna's hand went to her ceremonial blade. "You think yourself smart for hiding behind legal technicalities? I think myself smart for being alive and uninjured while accomplishing my mission objectives. Which, respectfully, is more than your warriors can say about their last 4 campaigns." The Ravager delegation made angry sounds. Several reached for weapons. Valna held up one massive hand, and they froze. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human. Definitely some of both. Now, are we going to cook or are you going to keep threatening me? Because the judges are getting impatient and my pasta waits for no one." The competition began with a signal from the head judge, an elderly Quellan diplomat who looked like he deeply regretted every life choice that led to this moment. Jade moved through her cooking with practiced efficiency. Boiling water, rendering bacon, whisking eggs with cheese. Her movements were casual but precise, and she kept up a running commentary that the translation systems broadcast to the entire audience. So the secret to good carbonara is temperature control and timing. You want the pasta hot enough to cook the egg mixture, but not so hot that you get scrambled eggs. It's all about that creamy texture, you know? Also, anyone who puts cream in carbonara is lying to themselves and dishonoring their ancestors. Valna, meanwhile, was preparing a traditional Ravager dish involving some kind of roasted meat with a complex spice blend. Her movements were powerful and aggressive, treating ingredients like enemies to be conquered. She said nothing, her focus absolute. "Your Empress is pretty good," Jade called over. "That sear on the meat is perfect. Respect." Valna's hands paused for just a fraction of a second. "You compliment your opponent? Why wouldn't I? Good cooking is good cooking. I'm trying to beat you, not pretend you're incompetent. That would be boring. For the first time since arriving, Valna's expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but perhaps a slight reduction in murderous intent. The cooking continued. Jade plated her carbonara with fresh herbs and a generous grinding of black pepper. Valna presented her dish with the kind of precise military efficiency that suggested she ran her kitchen the way she ran her fleet. The judges tasted both dishes in careful silence. They conferred. They tasted again. They conferred more urgently. Finally, the head judge stood. This is, without question, the strangest diplomatic situation I have been involved with in 40 years of service. He cleared his throat. However, the judgment is clear. War Empress Valna's dish is technically flawless. The spice balance is perfect, the meat cooked to precision, the presentation immaculate. The Ravager delegation began to cheer. However, the judge continued. Captain Russo's dish demonstrates a technique and flavor profile entirely unknown to Ravager culinary tradition. The egg preparation alone represents a skill set that we have been informed is, and I quote, actually really hard to get right. Furthermore, the requirement was to demonstrate superior cooking ability, not merely adequate execution of known recipes. Captain Russo has introduced an entirely new culinary concept to this competition. The cheering stopped. Therefore, by a vote of 3-0, we declare Captain Jade Russo the victor of this challenge. War Empress Valna stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then, slowly, she removed her command badge, the symbol of her authority over the entire Ravager fleet. She walked across the arena and placed it in Jade's hand. You are either the luckiest fool in the galaxy or the most dangerous warrior I have ever faced, Valna said quietly. Honestly, probably both. Jade looked at the badge, then back at the Empress. For what it's worth, your dish was genuinely excellent. You should open a restaurant if the whole war thing doesn't work out. Something that might have been a laugh escaped Valna's throat. You are insane. Yeah, but I'm also not interested in fighting you anymore. Your fleet's low on fuel, our reinforcements just arrived, and frankly, nobody wins if we actually start shooting. How about we call this whole thing a draw and everybody goes home? Valna looked at her warriors, then at the Valerian forces, then back at Jade with her ridiculous hat and her collection of alien military badges. Acceptable. But know this, human. If we meet again, I will not be so easily defeated. Looking forward to it. Next time, maybe we do a baking competition. I'll make a killer chocolate cake. As the Ravager fleet withdrew, as diplomatic channels opened, as what should have been a catastrophic battle transformed into the most unusual peace negotiation in galactic history, General Croth 9 approached Captain Russo. You did it, he said simply. You actually did it. Told you. Humans are really good at not playing fair. She looked at the command badge in her hand. This is going to look amazing on my wall. Captain Russo, I have one final question. Sure. Do you actually have any formal military training, or did Earth just send us their most chaotic civilian and hope for the best? Jade grinned. I have a degree in international relations and a minor in culinary arts. The military thing is kind of a side gig. Croth 9's eye stalks drooped in defeat. Of course it is. Of course it is. 3 weeks later, the badge hung on Jade's wall with a new plaque underneath that read, "They demanded I dress for war." I showed up in flip-flops and left with their commander's badge. Also, I made pasta.